It is Midweek Extra in association with Green King Sports. Huge thanks to Green King Sports for partnering with us across the season. Do download the app. Do get stuck in. You get 10% off drinks whenever there's live sport on the TV, and there's loads of live sports on this weekend and every weekend, let's be honest. So you're doing well to pay full price for drinks with that app over the weekend. It'll tell you where your nearest one is. And just this weekend, I've got my eye on Leeds v Sheffield United on Friday night. Feels like a great game to watch in the pub. There's the early one, Spurs v West Ham, 12:30 on Saturday, and then Bournemouth v Arsenal, which is maybe a tricky one. We'll let the people on the Friday show later decide on that, but that's the 5:30. And Man City play at 2:00 before the Reds on Sunday as well. So that is just the football. There's also Formula One, there's boxing, there's rugby league, there will be rugby union. They like it. That'll be on as well. So loads of sports on the telly. So it's the Green King Sports app. Make sure you download that one. Also, when you first download it, I got some questions in the Facebook subscribers group, which is featured heavily this week, about it, and then I looked into it and I was like, oh yeah, you get a free drink when you download it as well. So I thought I probably should mention that on a Thursday. So when you download the Green King Sports app, you get a free drink when you download it as well, and then 10% off drinks whenever live sports on the telly. So it is well worth it. But I have got Fuad, Hasan, I have got Josh Williams, and I've got Sean O'Donnell, and we're going to carry on Monday's agenda, because if I do one good agenda, I'll milk it for all it's worth. And so there you are. We are just going to focus on the positive. So on Monday, we actually did it on Tuesday, in the end of the free show, but we did one positive each and one negative each from a list compiled by our Facebook Anfield Wrap subscribers group. We're just going to do the positives today, partly because they clipped the negative and it made it look like a negative show. Those pricks in marketing, Fuad.
I know. Tell me all about them,
Never
John.
happened in your day,
No. Back in my day, we never did any of that. No.
Good news, Fuad. We only clipped good stuff.
Positive vibes only.
But yeah, it made it sound like we were all doom and gloom on Tuesday, and we were absolutely not. But listen, so we're going to focus on the positives today, and then in part 2 of the show, we're going to look ahead to Chelsea. But if you're not listening to Tuesday's show, these were the list. As I say, that the Facebook subscribers group came up with. We've got, first of all, the ones that have gone. So the ones that went on Tuesday, I'll start with. So you can't do these. So Ian Ryan picked Virgil and Konate. You can't have that. You can't have Luis Diaz and Neil Docking. Has got that one. And attitude of the squad went as well. That was Mo Stewart. But the ones that are still up for grabs, gentlemen, are defensive record so far, Ryan Gravenberch, game management, top of the league, Arne Slot, the Champions League start, and a seamless transition. So there you are. There you 7. You get to discuss each other's, but the other 4, I'm going to say I'll be never discussed again, but I'll probably do the agenda again on Monday. if Neil gets delayed coming back from Vegas, I'll be like, hey, there's 4 left, everyone. Yeah, who wants to go first? Come on.
I'll go first then, John.
Yes, sure.
So, yeah. I mean, first of all, it's good to have so many positives, isn't it?
Yeah.
Coming into this part of the season.
That's what I tried to tell the marketing team, but they were having none of it. Fucking clip contracts.
No, I think we had a little chat beforehand, but the one for me, which I think I'm going to go with, is seamless transition. Number of reasons. I mean, obviously you got to caveat it with it is early days. So as Andy pointed out to us before we started, if he loses 4 games, then it won't be so seamless.
Bad news here.
Yeah.
How is it under that bus, Andy?
However, I think the reason I've sort of gone with seamless transition is because I think it was probably the biggest risk coming into the season. Obviously a lot of change, not just the new manager, new coaching staff, new sort of structure behind the scenes as well. So there was quite a lot of change coming into this season, and we've seen it, with our not so close rivals, Man United. We've seen what can happen to them if it goes wrong.
They've had 5 shit seamless transitions.
Exactly. So we've sort of seen the worst of what can happen when such a figure as in Jurgen leaves the club, and that's I guess what I was most worried about in the summer. But you've got to say, the way the players have took it on board, the way that things have happened behind the scenes, transfers aside, maybe, but you look at the league position and say, well, actually, we feel like we're all right there. Has been something that I'm certainly really happy about. I think that I listened to the show with Neil and Clive Tilsley the other day. I thought it was brilliant, by the way. Yeah,
it's gone down well. Do listen if you've not yet.
Yeah, really good. It was all about succession, and it was a sort of similar theme to this. And there was a comment that Clive made on it, which just sort of stuck with me. And I'm hoping it comes true about this transition. It was about Shankly and Paisley. And it was about how when Paisley... So with Shankly, they played with the heart. The team played very much with the heart. And with Paisley, he got them to play with the head. And I think there's early signs of what you're seeing is that's what's happening now. And that for me is the most exciting thing, because obviously Paisley won a lot more trophies than Shankly. So if we can replicate that and Slot goes on to win more trophies in a less emotional way, if you can do that with Liverpool, I'm not sure you can. But if that is to come to fruition, then I think we'll all be very happy. And as I say, you've got to say, what's happened so far with all the sorts of, like, so for me, Mo Salah, what a start to the season is. I don't know, he tailed off towards the end of that sort of block of fixtures, if you like. But to see him come out far and to see him come out with even more fire in his belly, I think was massive in terms of what we've got to look forward to. I think to look at Trent and how he started the season, he already looks like the superstar that everyone sort of claims that he is. Even his performances for England, he's won how many man of the matches he's won for them. I think that's a real positive. And just in general, the mood of the supporters is still there. There's no sort of negativity, at the moment, which I think is really good. So on all levels, the transition to me feels like it has been seamless and it's exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is exciting, Josh, and it's gone so much better than I think you could have not necessarily hoped for. Obviously, we were all hoping it'd go really well, but I think we were expecting it to be a bit. What's the opposite to seamless? Seam.
Stitched.
We were expecting a few seams, and there's been very few, and I think a lot of credit to that goes to the manager because he's obviously a very clear communicator. Get him and his coaching staff clearly get their message across in a really effective way. I think a lot of the credit has to go to the players, how they've adapted, how they've taken on new information, how they've embraced the change. But I think that word embrace. I think a seamless transition only happens if the players are open, and I think they clearly have been, and that's a positive thing.
Yeah, well, I think someone else who deserves credit as well, obviously, is Jürgen for what he left behind. I think Slot has mentioned that, and I think that's a huge thing. Like, there was a lot of comparisons with Wenger, with Ferguson, but it's just completely different setup, completely different team, completely different philosophy almost that you leave behind and things like that. Ferguson was clever in that sense, by the way. In his final window, I think he goes and signs an absolute peak version of Van Persie, who's basically just coming over the other end of the hill. So, and I think he kept the likes of Ferdinand around and Vidic and Evra and Rooney, and they were all approaching that kind of 30-year-old thing. And I think if Ferguson at the time if it was maybe an earlier iteration of Ferguson, I think around that time he maybe thinks about the next team, building the next team and that. But because he's thinking, well, I want to go out on a high, he goes for the here and now. And kind of, I don't want to say he cripples the squad, but he does kind of leave the next manager in a bit of a tricky situation there. And then Moyes comes in and doesn't know who to sign and ends up getting Fellaini in the final days and all that. And there was no setup to surround Moyes in terms of a sporting director and like that. He just tried to replace the man who does everything with another man who does everything, without recognising that the modern game's evolved beyond that. And I think Wenger just gradually got a little bit outdated, and again, they go from Wenger to Emery, who's installing a completely different game in that. Whereas Liverpool, it has been a case of Klopp consistently building this identity over the course of a number of years, building a squad that can execute that style of play, and then just as that new team is kind of they're evolving, they're kind of starting to come towards their peak as a collective. He says, "Go on, Slot, you can have it, mate," and he just hands it over, and Slot looks at it, and I think he's made a few tweaks here and there, but I think for the most part, the nucleus has been there already. And I don't just mean with the players either. I mean with the defensive game, the pressing game, how creative Liverpool are in attack. The bringing the likes of Trent through and things like that. That was all Jürgen. So I think it's what we've seen this season with Slot has been a product of what we've been consistently building over the past 5 or 10 years.
I think that's a really good point. And Klopp, to all his credits, obviously what a man. He's he goes as far as calling it Liverpool 2.0, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Like in his last season, when you've got to imagine he knows that he's going. So yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
Sings his name and just says, look, it's going to be so seamless, you can even keep the same song. Seamless as fuck.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. I think that the structure that we talk about in terms of how, when Klopp came in as well, we talk about all the people around him and the whole thing with transfers where you have a multiple kind of layered decision-making system and all that. And what that structure allows for, and what didn't happen at United, is if you do have a Klopp, if you do have someone who grows into the role he grows into, the structure's kind of open for that. You can have figures emerge where they are kind of all encompassing. They are involved in every part of the club kind of operations and behind the scenes on the pitch, all of it. Whereas now, because we've had that structure, it's easy to kind of revert back to it. And I think what makes it more impressive to me is it's not just the manager. There's been like a whole turnover in staff, hasn't there, really? And that's probably where the senior players that have been left take a lot of credit as well, because from a day-to-day point of view, they've lost all their coaches pretty much, haven't they, from the last however many years. A whole new load have come in. Obviously, I'm sure that there's still a few around from those days, but it's a lot on them to sort of keep the standards high, to keep the young players, the new players who are coming through, like with the kind of motivation, the idea of, no, look, this is how we do things. I know it's changed around us and we may not have the same faces here, but this is sort of the level we're at. And that's been really impressive to me with the captain, with the others around and the ones who stepped up into that leadership role. I might be stealing one of the other positives here, John, so stop me if I am, but like it's been sort of everyone who's needed to step up has stepped up, and that's how you have a seamless transition. Can't just be sort of one thing. It's everyone doing their bit, isn't it?
Well, yeah. you were on the tour, weren't you, John? Or you went this year? I never went, but I know Dan, my mates, went over there, and the talk from the club,
wasn't as good as you, mate.
Yeah, I know, don't worry.
Not many are.
Yeah, but the talk, certainly what he sort of fed back and various different people, was just the level of change, the amount of change. You're seeing it in training, the pictures of them doing like boxing, all mad stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? So to have that level of change and then kick on to do what we've seen them do on the pitch, and as we say, we're sat here top of the league, albeit very early days, I think, is everything that you can, all the credit goes to everyone, doesn't it? It's not just the players, it's not just the manager, it's just everyone involved for making it so seamless.
I think on top of that as well, I'm not sure
on top of everyone.
I'm not sure how this will go down, but I think FSG quietly deserve a bit of credit for this seamless transition as well, because getting in Edwards to oversee what was quite clearly going to be a really difficult period to navigate. I think we got to a point where Jürgen was literally kind of holding up the whole thing on his own. And I think recognising that he's leaving, it is similar to Ferguson in many ways, and just kind of calling upon the guy who constructed the squad with Klopp, and Edwards, and Edwards got in a lot of the backroom scene at the time, and was largely responsible for a lot of what Liverpool did that was good, specifically in the market. And I think calling upon him as like, can you navigate this for us, basically, I think so far at least looks really healthy as well.
I think that is fair, because I think he's got obviously a lot of personal relationships with a lot of people already at the club, and that just sort of massively helps. And fair play for persuading him, because like I just don't think he was on his agenda.
He said no, didn't he?
He said no to everyone. He said no to it wasn't on his agenda at all. And then he got on a plane, flew out there, and then I don't know. They must be fucking charming as fuck. That's all I'm saying, because then suddenly poor Ryan Graham left in the lurch. Just his book for company, and then Michael Edwards is back at the wheel. There we are. Okay, just clip that. Josh talking about
please don't.
How amazing FSG are, and he's written it down. It was Shawnee threw you under the bus, that, not Josh. Like, don't do Josh dirty. Okay, I haven't got FSG on the positive. Sorry, Josh, you can't put them. But you want to put
that's probably a good thing.
But you want to pick one of the others?
I think it's similar to Sean's, but I think Arne Slot deserves a ton of credit for what he's done so far. I think he's been so impressive, and the transition wouldn't have been this seamless if Slot had even just slipping up with a few lines in the presses and things like that. Like we see, like for example, recently we've seen Lee Carter just have an absolute nightmare, didn't we, really, in the presser, and basically say like, England deserve a world-class coach. I'm not quite there yet. And then someone says to him, are you ruling yourself out? And you go, oh no, of course not. What do you mean, mate? You've just ruled yourself out. Yeah. So I think Slot has just rammed home these really calculated messages, almost really simple stuff.
Wait till we get to a final, and Slot's got to talk about the national anthem now. That's when these people really earn the money.
Yeah, I know.
Trying to navigate that.
But there was a point where he says, he gets asked about something to do with being top of the league, getting carried away, and he just basically said, well, we're Liverpool. Like, what do you mean? Yeah. We're used to this. And I thought that was a really good message. And there's been a lot of games that we've won. I think we've obviously won 9 out of 10. And after most of them, he's just outright when he's been given the opportunity by an interviewer to praise an individual player, or he's basically said, well, we could have done this better, and there's been isolated games as well where he's made an influence on his own tactically, like Ipswich, for example. Second half, he completely changes the build-up shape. We absolutely dominate them second half and take like 15 shots. Man United, he plays with the midfield, plays McAllister as the 6 and Gravenberch as the 8, and it works. There was a recent game against Palace. He uses 4-3-3 rather than 4-2-3-1 and starts playing with their midfield too. We were left isolated. So I think he's been spot on tactically and in press conferences and everything. He's been really, really good.
Yeah, it's. I mean, there is so much that is impressive about him, Fuad, and again, fair play to Josh's friends at FSG for going out and getting him. But I think for me, Josh is right to highlight how he is off the pitch as well as how he is as a coach, because listen, what the team are doing are the most important thing, but we know at a club the size of Liverpool, you're following Jurgen, who was just this great talker, it was going to be like, well, what's this guy sort of like, what's he all about? I think he's gracious as anything with Jurgen Klopp. I think he talks him up any sort of opportunity. He talks up the squad that he's been left with, like the lad said before, but also just, if anyone starts to talk about, this is better now, he's like, oh no, I'm sure Jurgen was doing it as well. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. He's sort of, he's been very, gracious in sort of that. I think the easiest thing for the manager to come in is sort of rubbish the last fella. Oh no, they're all unfit and stuff like that. But like he just knew that wouldn't wash, I think, and it just doesn't seem his style at all. For him, he's come in and said, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants here, and what a place that is to be. I'm looking out on everyone else, and if I can add a bit, then brilliant. And I think that's what his approach and his manner has been, and it's been really refreshing.
Totally. I think he's not been like searching for credit, as he's not been looking to get compliments and for things to be about him and how he sort of set up things and changed things. There's very little kind of talk of that, really. I feel like he gets the question, for the players, whenever they do the media, they get the question, what's the biggest difference between Arne Slot and Jurgen Klopp, playing under them? And you can tell from their kind of point of view that it's subtle things, but a lot of it is kind of mindset and stuff that they were already doing, but they were sort of on a natural evolution last season. I think almost the team was in transition in a weird way last season, weren't they? But the actual transitions happened over this summer, and I think it's so impressive. I think the thing I struggled with initially was how can you follow on from Jurgen Klopp from a fan's point of view? How can you follow on from sitting down watching press conferences? I'd love to know how many people would just tune into any press conference Jurgen did, because they just we just all loved hearing him speak, didn't we? And it was always going to take a little bit of time to get that. And I feel like now with Slot, he's so comfortable in his own skin, so comfortable with how he sort of how he wants to portray himself and portray the team more than anything, and how much sort of homework he's done. I know it's quite basic, but he's like constantly referenced specific games from last season or years before, or little bits of Jurgen's football in the years before that even. And that's someone who's really thoroughly done their job. I know it's the basic you'd expect from a top manager, but it's just nice to see all the sort of things you maybe weren't sure about, egos, all these sorts of things have just completely been put aside, and he's just been himself, hasn't he?
I mean, obviously, Jurgen was a close personal friend of ours, sure. You know what I mean? Like, you talk about Singapore, we'll always have it. Yeah. But the new guy's just come in and he's just been himself from day one. He's been himself in terms of how he's been on the mic, but also in terms of the team. He's like, no, this is what I want my football team to look like, and I'm going to back the players to pick it up quickly, and rather than this idea of we'll play the Jurgen style for a while and I'll gradually bring it in. It's like boom, minute one, he's gone, no, we're gonna go for it here. I'm gonna impose how I think the team should play on it sort of straight away. There's certain players who are gonna fit in with that, and I'm gonna play them more. And the confidence to do that, I think, has been fantastic as well, because it's paid off. You just look at the table. Yeah,
100%. To be honest, he's exceeded my expectations on every level. I think it started with his first interview that he did with Peter McDowell, where he was sat on that couch, and it was like a 20-minute interview. And one of the things that I took from that was they asked him, about his expectations, what he wants to do, and he was very complimentary about Klopp. And this is before he's even played the game or done a training session, by the way. And he straight away says, we finished third last year. Well, we'd like to finish higher than that this year. And for me, that was the sort of benchmark, really. That was set there and then. You sort of see him like what you were walking into with him. And I think that, it could have been. It's so easy for him to play the whole on replacing a great and almost manage expectations. We've seen managers come in and manage expectations,
5-year plans, and all that.
exactly, and failed badly. And the irony is, I think if he was to come in and say something along those lines, he might have got away with it because we were all such a, enthralled in this sort of Jurgen journey and this how amazing it was, and we were all thinking it's big shoes to fill. It's a.
I think the media as well would have bought into it because there's a lot of talk of what's going to happen after Jurgen. So I think there was an opening for him to do that if he chose to, both in terms of the fan base but also the wider media as well.
Yeah, exactly, and he hasn't hid away from anything. As Josh says, every time he's interviewed and asked about positives about players, he always picks out improvements and what they could have done better. And actually, I quite like that. I like how he was sort of ruthless with his Quansah thing in the first game. We all love Quansah, and he's a brilliant player. He's going to be a brilliant player for Liverpool. But to hook him at half time, we've very rarely seen Jurgen do that. Yeah. And we don't want to get into the comparison of Slot versus Jurgen and almost sort of like looking at the past thinking, it's better now because we know it's not. We know what we had with Jurgen was special and will probably never be bettered, from a journey point of view. But from a trophies perspective, I think we've got someone here who's got that bit between his teeth. It was sort of clinical in what he does. It's early days. We'll keep caveating that it is early days. But look at the results this season so far. It's much more measured. It's much more calm. We're just getting things done. We're getting results done, and that's how you win leagues. On every level, he's exceeded my expectations. I think the press conferences, as we touched upon it, the interviews, the sort of ambition that he shows. That way Liverpool comments when he was asked if he was top of the league for me was just like, I sent it to a few mates. I never really send like press conference clips or whatever, but I was like, fucking hell, look at this! Like we've got someone here. And I think the other really exciting thing about it for me is that I don't think he quite understands what he's got yet from us as a fan base, as a club.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, because
like first massive game when it really goes, and he's going to be like, "Fucking hell."
Yeah. Because he's probably been told about it all, and he's probably got these expectations, and he's come in and he's seen Anfield like, "Oh yeah, it's all right, yeah." But just wait until Real Madrid are home, mate. Just wait until that, and then you'll see what this is all about, and you'll get it because it takes everyone a while to get it because from all the sort of misconceptions about our atmosphere and what we are as a club, it's not every week. We know it's not every week, but when it's needed, we're there 110%. And I think again, we've got something quite exciting on our hands here.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Fuad, I'll give you a reminder of what's left for you. It's defensive record so far. Ryan Gravenberch, game management, top of the league or the Champions League start. So you've got 5 there to choose from. What are you going to go for?
I'm gonna. It's not gonna be a seamless transition to the next one. So I'm gonna go with Ryan Gravenberch, just because I think
I can't believe it took this
I would have been amazed if
I was surprised. Like I initially thought the bowl ones were the only ones available. So then I saw the initials and I was like, I mean, we talk about the manager there, and obviously the impact on Ryan has been huge. But I just think that the sort of transition we've seen, I mean, literally going back to the point where, was it Thomas Tuchel who said, don't think you can ever play in a midfield too?
Yeah.
And what are we seeing now? I mean, we're seeing like a complete transformation. I want to caveat it first with, we probably were talking similar about Szoboszlai at a similar point last season. And, there's a lot more to come. There's a lot of games, big games to come. And he's going to, have to go through all those tests. But I think seeing a player, come in the way he did, no preseason last season, sort of thrown in and out in different patches, showed loads of good little moments, but it never felt like he felt himself that he was fully belonged in midfield. He looked a bit timid, and you see the odd bit of flair, and you see the turn, the touch, all of that. But now it's like that entire midfield is just sort of his to Marshall, and you could almost see him playing, in a three in the way Fabinho did, and was that lighthouse, wasn't he, as Pep Linders said, because suddenly he just looks 6'4", whatever he is. Suddenly he looks really quick. Suddenly he looks like the most kind of graceful passer of the ball. His first touch is always brilliant, and I think like what it's given the team, and probably how the manager wants to play. We talk about how it's control. And then it's, we go and we play that sharp ball inside, and we kind of turn and we open up space. He's the one that's been sort of at the heart of that a lot of the time, isn't he? The way he kind of turns on the ball, the way he can receive it and plan 2 moves, ahead. And I think, the defensive work, I was a bit worried. I didn't think he necessarily had the ability to sort of read the game in the way he does, mainly because he's young, mainly because he's probably never been asked to do that. I've not seen him much. I never saw him much at Ajax, so maybe he was doing that a little bit more there. But it's quite nice to see a player just look suddenly so confident and comfortable in his own skin. And I wonder if he seemed like a very nice kind of, timid, relaxed guy, when he came in. And I wonder if there was a bit of a fire lit, for him, and there was a bit of a thing thrown down of maybe Arne Slot pinned the Thomas Tuchel comment up in his on his locker or something like that. Like it feels like he's playing with a real kind of urge to prove people wrong at the moment, and he's very relaxed about it. When he talks about his performances, he knows himself. Yeah, this is just sort of the start. There's it's about me doing this consistently. I'm sure the senior ones around him, like your Virgil van Dijks and people like that, have been really kind of key on, look, don't get too ahead of yourself. It's about not getting too high or too low with your performances. It's about keeping that kind of middle, and consistency is the key. And I'm actually really excited to see how we in this run. I know it's a tough run coming up, but I'm really excited to see how he sort of deals with it, because I'm not sort of worried about it. I just think it can only be good. I struggle to see him getting found out, or Liverpool getting found out in that way. If there is issues, it will be bigger than just one player. But I think he can, against these top sides especially, he can be a real game changer, both further up the pitch, but also kind of more in a defensive role.
Yeah, he's been so impressive, Sean, hasn't he? Every aspect of his game, and there's been certain performances this season where he's almost surprised you with what he can do. I remember Milan away in particular, just how well he sort of dominated that game and read everything from midfield. And we knew he had a talented player, and you could see what he had at times last year, even when he was, struggling a little bit. But it's a jumping in level that I can't remember ever seeing. Everyone used to talk about Perez's first season, didn't he?
Yeah.
Perez, he'll be made up. He'll be like, finally, someone else has done a bigger jump from first season to second season, because I didn't watch Robert Perez that much in that first year at Arsenal, but he must have been fucking shite, because everyone banged on about it for ages, sort of when he sort of kicked on. But this is, it's been like, that's the only sort of the comparison I can make from season 1 to season 2. He's been unbelievable.
Yeah, he has. I mean, the only thing I can think of when you think about, and we put a Liverpool sort of lens on it, is Firmino from Rodgers to Klopp.
Yeah.
And the difference in just getting understood a bit more. And that's not to say that the team didn't understand them last year. Of course they did. But last season was mad. Like, if you think about it, all the injuries we had, we were in crisis mode for a lot of last season. We were playing kids in finals, obviously. There's loads more stuff that you've got to throw into last season. Given the fact that he didn't really play the season before, really, and he was like obviously publicly criticised by his manager, all that type of thing. So he's probably really low on confidence. I think in the early stages of last season, when he was coming on as a sub and making a few cameos, he did actually look, impressive. I think you could see, the potential in him there. And then as the season went on, maybe he's playing not in a full strength side, or he's not getting as many opportunities, and maybe his confidence just dwindles a bit. And then all it takes is a management team to come in, to understand them, to get him, and straight away you can see that change in confidence. Because let's not forget, we publicly went after a number 6, like a high profile one as well. So I think
he probably didn't realise he was a number 6 at the time. So he was like, oh, sorry.
Exactly. So I think even more credit to him for that. He's definitely been, obviously, the start of our season so far. I think he's won nearly every man of the match award, hasn't he? Which probably tells you the story on that front. But again, it's something that transfers always get thrown at you as like they're the answer to everything, and you've got to always look to the transfers and buy someone, and that'll be better. But I'm always of the view that there is still stuff you can do with the squad that you've got, and I think that fair play to Slot for not panicking and just buying someone after that Zubimendi thing fell through, and identifying Gravenberch as that player, because it's coming to fruition, and it's looking like it's benefiting us all.
Yeah, I once called you a Ryan Gravenberch fridge on a show, Josh. If you remember, yeah, it was early. You weren't sure about the signing before we'd even bought him.
Thanks for that, John.
Well, no, it's just.
I'm preparing the context now. There's context behind this.
It was more of a reminder of my hilarity than anything sort of negative around you. But would you describe yourself now as a Ryan Gravenberch fairness?
Yeah, definitely. In fact, no, I wouldn't. So I'd never describe myself as that.
Tinder bio.
FSG fairness.
Yeah, definitely never describe myself as a fairness, mate. But I think when we initially signed him, I was excited by the player he could become. I just didn't think we needed him because I viewed him as an 8. I viewed him as an expressive player who you've got around maybe the final third. I thought we had a few of them. I thought we had Elliott and we just got Szoboszlai and McAllister and that. So I didn't really see the need for a player like that. But I liked the idea that we had a player with a high ceiling for, what did we get him for? 30 million or something like that, 35 million or something. So and he was still only, I think he's like 200 days younger than 200 days older than Kwanzaa. So he's a proper kid. We don't realise how much of a kid he is. And I think what's benefited them this season, I don't even think it's so much the position. I think it's the playing style. I think that the change in how we behave with the ball has had a massive impact on him, to the extent where you can play him as an 8. He still plays brilliantly well when for Liverpool this season, whether he's an 8 or a 6. It's the getting on the ball constantly and the calmness, and maybe relying on pressing as a playmaker a little bit less this season. He got asked actually a couple of weeks ago, what is the difference? And he said, I'd go games last season where you've touched the ball once in 15 minutes, whereas now you just get into that rhythm where you're touching the ball constantly. And I've always said he's a player who looks good when he's kind of on autopilot, where he's not thinking, he's just kind of going through it in a flow. He's that kind of player for me. I think what I've been most surprised by, though, this season, I think if you'd have said to me at the start of the season, Gravenberch's going to be a 6, I think my biggest concern would have been the defensive end. I think he's always been brilliant on the ball, even last season. Even when he first came in, as you mentioned, mate, and he gets assists and that, he's always been relatively creative and things like that. But defensively, I thought he was maybe a bit more of a passenger than he actually is. And I think in the AC Milan game, what are you laughing at?
Still laughing at my joke. What do you mean?
That one, Mark.
No, I was actually, to be honest, laughing at your joke backstage. No, actually, I wouldn't. I never would do that. No, I was laughing at that. Go on, mate. You're making a sensible football point.
I was trying, yeah. In the AC Milan game that you mentioned, where he was defensively sound, I think in that game, Milan posted something like 8 interceptions as a team, and I think Gravenberch posted 7 on his own. So I think in that game especially, I was proper amazed by this kid can read the game before it's happened there. Unbelievable stuff. So hopefully he keeps it going, because I think he's probably the only player, maybe alongside Virgil, who's yet to have a bad game. I think every game he's been minimum 7 out of 10, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's been fantastic and a revelation this season, and bigger challenges to come, certainly defensively in that position, but long may continue. And just to pick up on something you said, Josh, and this is a sensible football point on this idea of positions and what he's being asked to do. And I think for some coaches, and I think Slot's one, it seems to be one of them, I think what you've got the player doing is almost more important than where they are on the pitch. And I think there's other sorts of coaches for that, and I think as fans we get sort of hung up on, is he a 6 or is he this, but I think for Slot, he's like, well, I've got him doing this role, and where he does it on the pitch doesn't necessarily really matter. You could play someone at centre half if what you wanted from your centre half was a specific thing. And I think that's sort of how Slot and I think other managers see it, rather than kind of us who goes, well, if you're in this position, then you must be good at X, Y, and Z.
Well, I think if you was to play him as a 6 last season under Klopp, not to have a go at the game we played last season, because it was still good enough to take us over 80 points and things like that. But I think if he plays as a 6 in that kind of environment, he maybe finds it a bit more hectic, where he's kind of isolated a little bit more. The midfield's probably getting bypassed a little bit more, so he's doing a bit more running, touching the ball less. So this season, as I said, I think the playing style just really complements his game, what he's about, getting into that flow where you're constantly seeing the ball and everything's normal to you, everything's natural and stuff like that. So yeah, as I said, I don't think it's necessarily the positional switch that's transformed him. I think it's just the overall change to Liverpool's game and how much more patient it's become that is allowing Gravenberch to just do his thing when he gets on the ball.
I think also, sorry, the sort of little partnership that we see in game with McAllister has really been helpful as well, because you see them sort of move together as a 2 a lot of the time, and I think having that other player there to bounce off they complement each other really well, I think, in terms of their attributes and what they can do. You know, Josh talked about the United game where, you know, McAllister was deeper in moments and, you know, Gravenberch went and was sort of playing further up in that kind of 8 kind of role. So the flexibility in game and in that kind of duo as they have been for most of the season, you know, is already looking really strong. And I think, you know, you can sort of use that as a base. And the challenge then becomes obviously the games where things get a little bit more stretched if we do have to turn it into a bit more of a basketball match. But I think he's someone who's clearly been told, and, you know, he'll know himself, like, you know, Liverpool play next week, you know, against Real Madrid. I am starting that game. And I think for some players, you know, we can say, oh, it's not good, you need to keep them on their toes, there needs to be that competition. But I think because of probably the experiences he's had over the last few years, having that complete reassurance at the moment where the manager just knows he's his man, he's his starting midfielder is helpful rather than a problem or giving him sort of a bit of complacency, because I think he's just feeling very comfortable and he seems like a guy who needs like comfort around him to really thrive, and he's getting that right now.
I thought Fuad was saying that he was starting Real Madrid there, but I surprised. And I was like, fucking hell, that's some exclusive for the Anfield Wrap. But then I realised you're being Ryan Gravenberch. So there we go.
I'll start Real Madrid if you want, John.
Well,
the room me in or out.
I'd back you. Get a big 20 at least, and then you might drift out of it. Okay, hope you've enjoyed that. That has been the positives from the season. We're going to go on and talk about Chelsea in a minute. But first of all, I just wanted to mention something that we're doing a week on Saturday at Blackstock Market, home of hot water comedy, and that is in aid of Zoe's Place. So a lot of people would have seen lots of activity going on at the moment, trying to raise money for Zoe's Place. They need a new home, they need some money, and quickly, to make sure that they don't have to shut and they can keep continuing to provide the amazing services that they do to families across Merseyside, and for very young children aged 0 to 5 and their families that they support. Loads going on. The Liverpool Echo are doing a really good job of pulling it all together, but the one thing that we're doing, which is a week Saturday, so Saturday the 26th of October, it's in the afternoon, is an afternoon with Jamie Carragher. So Jamie's given up his time. I'm going to be doing a Q&A with him on stage. We've also got Adam Rowe coming down, who's doing a little bit before, which is amazing of him. I mean, Adam's doing fucking loads, fair play, and he's probably doing even more than I've even seen, but he's coming down and doing a bit for us, which is absolutely brilliant. And so if you can come down, we'd love to see you. The tickets are available through Blackstock Market's website. They are £30 entry plus a little booking fee, or you can pay $200 and sit on the front row, and I'll get Jamie to sign a 2005 Istanbul shirt for you as well that I need to source, but that's just an action point for me. You don't have to bring your own. I'll sort it sometime between now and then, get Jamie to sign them, and that'll be a nice little gift for you. So we'd love to see you down there. Chelsea, someone said before, Sean, I think it was you. Sean said before, Sean, about
Ryan Gravenberch.
No, about him. Yeah, you called him a fridge. It was weird. You said that you can't wait for Slot's first sort of big afternoon / evening. Like, and it could potentially be Sunday because like it's the biggest game of the season. It's a massive home game. We haven't played for a couple of weeks, and it feels like about 2 months. These games have a tendency, something might happen in it that just might sort of light a fire. I mean, last year was brilliant. Conor Bradley playing like fucking, I don't know, Messi or something. Messi who could tackle. It was. Last year was great. Obviously, that was a night game, but this one could be a bit of a big one as well. I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah,
good point. I am as well. I think 4:30 on a Sunday, it does tend to get the appetite going a bit more. Depending on
you've got to wait for ages. There's all these games on Saturday. Fucking United have got beat again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Arsenal and City playing before us as well, so there could be some potential extra sauce.
City's
with
right
that as
before
well.
us. Yeah.
So listen, really looking forward to it. I think there's a lot to be said about Chelsea at home. Over the years, we've had some good ones, haven't we? They always tend to be good games. I think this season, I mean, the one thing you've got in the back of your mind is that it's after an international break. Obviously, Slot's experience of after an international break hasn't been great with us. So I think it's actually a positive that it is a big game, and it's a Sunday, it's a 4:30, it's not just a run-of-the-mill game. I mean, like of what we've just said about Slot Day, I'd like to think that he wouldn't make the same mistake twice in terms of the approach or what happens, and even the players coming back and selection and stuff. But this one, you feel like, it is such a big game. It's Chelsea. They haven't been in a great place in the last few years, but there's definitely signs of them coming back to, at least be, a force again in the Premier League, and that's what we're sort of seeing at the start of this season. So yeah, it's going to be a massive game. I think that the selection is interesting, just given the break that we've had. Slot, pretty much sort of picked the same team all the way throughout, hasn't he? The first part of the season. It'd be interesting to see what he does, whether he has sort of looked at that first block of fixtures as, I'm going to pick this team and that's it, and then I'm going to start to rotate a bit more coming into this phase, or whether he does just sort of stick with the same core. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, the selection will be interesting because we lose the game. The only one we've lost so far is straight after the international break. So is that something that he's thinking about? Does he maybe think some of the players for the travel affected them a little bit there? Mo made an interesting point on Talking Reds yesterday about the idea that people will have started to pay attention to Liverpool and looking what he's done and the fact that he's played largely the same group of players. Does he throw a bit of a Mickey in, almost kind of like the maybe thinks that the Chelsea manager won't necessarily be expecting? What will be going through the manager's mind, do you think, or do you think he'll just pick the 11 that we could just write down now?
Well, I think the Forest game was 3 p.m. Saturday, wasn't it? Yeah. Well, I think in that week as well, I think the South American lads might have played like Wednesday night or something like that. Like it was a close kind of turnover type thing. Whereas this time, I think they've got a bit more time to basically get back and get a bit more recovered and things like that before the game. So I think Slot will just pick his best team. But to be honest, I think he seems to do that most weeks, to be fair. I could just say that on every single podcast and I'd probably be 90% right by the end of the season. I like it as well. I think if we can keep everyone happy doing it, I've got no major issues with it. I think that'll be the hard thing. But considering it is Chelsea, it is the biggest game that we've had this season, probably. Certainly the toughest opponents. And I agree with Sean. I think that they are building. I think they're improving. I think Maresca looks good as well. I think Liverpool should just go full strength and kind of think about the rest later on almost.
Full strength and just twat them through.
Yeah, I'm all for that. That can be arranged. I'm all in. No, I mean, to be honest, he's not stopped talking about Forest, has he? I mean, he's probably gone home over the international break and still banged on about it.
I know.
It's definitely been in his mind and in everything he publicly talks about to the media. So I reckon there's been a big think of what went wrong there. What could we have done differently from his point of view and their preparation point of view. But the big factor is it's not a 12:30 on a Saturday. It is Chelsea at home. It is also the big games, in a way, sort themselves out in terms of the intensity, creating that kind of intensity for yourself, and sort of the style of the game will be one where Chelsea aren't going to come and do what Forest did, are they, for large parts of that game. So there will be like a natural flow to it in that sense. I'd go as strong as possible. I think it's one where if we are talking about this period being, quite tricky in terms of the games and the intensity of it, you want to start, don't you, with a win, especially with a team that could be kind of, wants to be in where you are, don't they? They want to be in the same conversation. This is a way of sort of basically going, nah, City and Arsenal are our business. No one else kind of below that.
Chelsea any good, Josh?
I think they are, yeah. I think they are. I think when you actually look at the squad, they've got a massive squad still, and they've got loads of kind of like deadwood that aren't getting gained. Like having to loan out Raheem Sterling basically for free is mad. But when you actually look at the squad they've got left, they have got, similar to Liverpool, 2 players for every spot, and the 2 players for every spot are all pretty good as well. I think big fan of Cole Palmer as well. I think he's I think out of every player I've ever seen, I've been most surprised by what he's doing.
Yeah.
Like, I think Kane had a little bit of that as well with me. Kane just exploded out of nowhere, didn't he?
Yeah.
I just didn't really see it coming. But Cole Palmer I saw the other day that in that game against Brighton he scores 4, didn't he? Since we signed Szoboszlai, he scored 3 in the Premier League, and Palmer scores 4 in one game. Unbelievable. And the free kick he scores as well is serious. So I think he's a player that you need to look after.
He makes it look really easy. Like every aspect of football look really easy.
Yeah, some players just play the game and they just get it. They just understand the sport at a like granular level without being particularly deep thinkers, if you want. I think Scholes comes to mind as another one like that. Just plays the game. He's a different Paul Mason as well. Different person on the pitch with the ball than off the pitch when they're asked to speak about the game. And Palmer looks like one of them, just naturally football IQ maybe is what you'd call it. But he's a player that you need to take care of. But I do think he kind of plays in the zone of Van Dijk maybe. So that's maybe a benefit for us. At least he won't be coming up against our weaker side maybe. But yeah, I do rate Chelsea. I think the probably top 4 level is probably going to finish 4th for me, Chelsea. Yeah, I think they're on the right track, but hopefully they just keep signing a million players, and because that'll eventually send them in the wrong direction.
Just to go back to the point you made before about like the crowd exploding or whatever on a Sunday R4 game. I think
it's more you than Chelsea's tactical setup.
Them. I think as well, like obviously Chelsea coming to, as Josh has just said there, being a team that are probably the best team we've played this season so far, obviously that gets everyone up for it. But I think there'll be an element of the players, particularly the likes of Trent and Virgil, who've been there for a while, they've been there, they've done it. I think they'll want to almost show the manager what it's like, and with a big tackle or with something that goes in. Gerrard and Carragher used to do it all the time, didn't they? Like big game, first tackle, bang, and they knew that would get the crowd going. I think there'll be an element of within our senior players, or certainly the players that have been there a while, maybe even some of the players who've been here just the last couple of years, will sort of play to that more than they have done this season, because it has been very controlled. It's been something a bit different, but maybe just with the eye on Sunday, the good thing about Sunday, like for our 4 games in winter, it does start to go dark a little bit, doesn't it? That always adds to the occasion. So yeah, I think we've got an exciting Sunday on our hands, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm so looking forward to it, Fuad. I was looking at Sean then going, do you reckon I can get him out for the 2 o'clock?
I don't think I think much twisting.
He does feel like me man for it. Go to one of your bars, Sean, for that 2 o'clock game. Maybe Arsenal.
I'll be there, John, don't worry.
Wolves have got a decent record against City as well, haven't they? So maybe imagine if City drop points. Just to draw
don't
through,
talk to me like
and then
that.
we're all bouncing in there. Sean sorted the sun to go down somehow. Unseasonably early sunset. Chelsea, they won't want to know, Phil.
No, they wouldn't. No, not if Sean's there as well. We're not fancy at all. Won the game before a ball's been kicked. I'm really excited. Like, to be honest, it's kind of crept up for me a little bit. I think with an international week, you sort of zone yourself out, don't you? And this is sort of very much zone me back in, John. Like, I'll go out with you from now if you want.
That's the 2 o'clock today. It's Melbourne's birthday tomorrow. We'll just go for that and then just sort of stick with it. Just roll through.
Yeah, I'm really up for it, and I think like what Sean says is totally right with the crowd. I think it's what you were saying before as well, showing the manager what we can do, and I think it's not going to be 90 minutes necessarily of non-stop madness, but in those moments where they need it and where we kind of feed off each other like we've done so well over the past, it will just be a big sort of yes, come on, like this period now that we're going into. If we can go on Sunday and get a positive result and put in a bit of a performance as well, it just also sends a bit of a thing out, like I was saying before, that look, Chelsea are, everyone has been so keen to kind of group us with the Chelseas, the battle for that kind of 4th spot, the lead up to the season, early on in the season. But then this would just sort of be these are playing for bigger things. These are with the big boys at the top.
That's right.
Got goosebumps here. Biggest game of our lives.
I know. Fuad on the team tour. Me and Sean are busy. We can't do it. Is anyone going to keep a worries? Obviously, Alison's not going to play. It's Kelleher. Has anyone got any concerns? He's beat Chelsea in a cup final.
I think we should be more they should be more concerned about their keeper, to be honest. Did you see him in the last game? He just give away 2 freebies out of nowhere. So I think this is one of them games where we can maybe use the pressure a little bit more than we've used in other games. Like I think the Man United game, we play on Casemiro and score a few goals on the back of it. And I think Chelsea are trying to play in a similar way. And the goalkeeper, as I said, just seems to be a bit indecisive, to be honest. I think he's quite technical, but he's indecisive on the ball. So I think if you can force him into a mistake, I think he's more likely to make a mistake for me now than Kelleher, to be honest. And that shows the faith that I've got in Kelleher, but the lack of belief I've got in Sanchez as well, probably.
Yeah. Overall feeling good, feeling good about the keeper, feeling good about the weekend, feeling good about the score, feeling good.
I'm loving the positive show. This is it. This is what we should do all the time.
This is it. The positive show. Listen, we're all feeling good. We're rolling into an exciting part of the season, but Liverpool are top of the league, which is exactly where you want them to be. We will leave it there. Thanks to Green King as well for sponsoring with us. Maybe go to Green King pub to watch some footy this weekend. You have got 10% off all drinks, and as I say, a free one if you download that Green King Sports app. But thanks a lot to them. Thanks, of course, to my guests, which has been Fuad, Josh and Sean. Andy for producing audio. Sam on video. Up the Reds.